Welcome to the Nobody Guide to Life, where we provide tips and tools for personal growth, personal development, and your spiritual journey that you can use right now in your everyday life. I'm J.A. Plosker. You can always find out more at thenobodyguidetolife.com. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you ever get to a place in your life where it all seems to be going downhill? Maybe it's a pile of debt or a difficult relationship you're in, or maybe your career or emotions seem to be spiraling off course. But maybe you have a time in life where all of these things and more are really weighing you down. What do you do when that happens? At that point, it might be time for, well, a reset. And that's the message today's guest brings. Jacqui Phillips is a TV and radio host, celebrity makeup artist, lifestyle coach, producer, creator, public speaker, best-selling author, and entrepreneur. Her mission is to inspire others to be their best selves. She is the host of Joy in Our Town on TBN and the host of Reset on 91.1 WTYJ. She's also the host for Millennium Magazine's multimedia platform. As an inspirational speaker and author of Reset, 6 Essential Resets to a Healthier, Happier You, Jacqui encourages and inspires people to reset their lives and dare to dream. Her nonprofit Reset program tours the country doing prison ministry and bringing her messages to many people who need it. Welcome to the show, Jacqui.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm just honored.
Well, it's a pleasure. It really is. And I really took a good look at your background, and you do so many things. There are so many things that you've gotten into, and it really looks like you really did a reset on your life. And I was wondering if you could tell us about your journey of personal and spiritual growth. What got you, I guess, on this road to a reset?
Well, I think I hope everyone doesn't have this moment, but certainly many people do, where you wake up one day and you realize the life you're living is not the life you intended at all. And,
right.
For me, that came with a lot of depression. I was facing a multitude of problems simultaneously, big problems. I owned businesses. I was in a failing relationship. I was severely overweight, and I'd never been overweight in my life. So being overweight, I just felt really horrible all the time, physically, tired and just
right.
lethargic, even though that is a word for tired, but it's a different kind of feeling, and just wasn't myself anymore. I woke up one day and I looked at myself and I didn't recognize the person in front of me. And I certainly knew I didn't know that girl anymore and who'd she become.
Right.
And so I was facing, like I said, several problems at the same time. And I knew I had to change because there was a real strong part of me that would have rather been dead, because I just didn't know how I was going to get myself out of this mess that became of my life. And, just like many people, we are not the sole factor in that mess. It's many people who are in our lives that we allow in our lives. But at the end of the day, and what Reset is all about, is you can make the decision to change, but it's up to you to be accountable to create the steps in your life, make the decision, stick with them, and start a new journey. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort, and it's not fun, like, let's be real. Like, it sucks, but, it's so worth it, because I feel now like I'm the person I used to be before life got in the way.
Well, so take us back there a little bit, because I think there are so many things. When I took a look at some of the crises that you were facing, and you mentioned that you woke up in a body, in a life that you didn't recognize. How did it come to that? Because I think so many people listening, and me as well, we find ourselves in situations that just sort of happen. We just sort of, like you said, allow them to happen. What were those moments for you? What was that buildup for you? What were the things that you were facing, that you were struggling with, that really pushed you in the direction of knowing you needed that reset?
Well, I would say the biggest thing under the umbrella was I owned a business. I owned a few businesses with my ex-boyfriend, and our partners went bankrupt. And we had to make a lot of decisions fast. But the truth was, I wanted out of that business for a long time. And sometimes you make decisions, you get involved in things you, in your spirit, you knew you should have never did anyway, you know, but you do it. And there's always so many roadblocks. You know, not to revert, and I'll go exactly back where we are now, but one of my best friends is a emotional intelligence expert. She owns a yoga studio, and she always would say to me, if it flows like water, you know it's right. If it doesn't, you know it isn't. Like, it is that simple. And we always feel that we know in our spirit if we're supposed to make a decision or not. So I had the business, the partners went bankrupt. So basically in one day, I lost everything I worked for the last 7 years because I knew I didn't want to start another one. I was exhausted. I was in debt now because I had so much invested in the business. And of course, there's business debt that goes along with it. And now I don't even have the money coming in from the business to be paying on the debt. And, and I also was in a very long-term relationship that we should have ended probably a lot sooner. And, you know, when you're together, when you're really young, you create a life together. And it's hard to break up sometimes, especially, you know, you meet as kids, like we were in our 20s and we loved each other, but we weren't meant to be together forever. But when you're so involved financially, it's very hard to unravel all that. But because my life had become so dysfunctional, because, you know, in the business, decisions were being made that I didn't always agree with, money was being spent, I wouldn't have spent a certain way. You know, when you lose control of your life, you start sabotaging it in other ways. And for me, I started gaining weight. I'd quit working out. I was very depressed. I wasn't getting the life I wanted. You know, there was a part of me that wanted to get married and have children and, you know, have that part of my life fulfilled. And that was abundantly clear that was not happening. So it was kind of like a multitude of things all at once. You know, you have the failed business, which I ended up having to bankrupt, which was the worst day of my life. I had partners that were not accountable. I paid off every single piece of debt myself. I had signed on to many things personally because I made a very, you know, a nice income from working in television as a makeup artist. Like, I toured the world with people. You know, I had a very busy career. So I was very blessed in that way that I never gave that up. Thank God. Because I was still able to keep a roof over my head. But so I had that, you know, I had to bankrupt the business. I had the failed relationship. I was severely overweight. I was very depressed. And I was, you know, really questioning my faith. I had faith. I hadn't lost faith in God. But I was certainly wondering if maybe he had better problems to deal with than all my crises, you know? He's like, you're annoying and I'll get back to you later, you know? But yeah, so it was kind of like, for me, one day, and I write about it in my book, Reset, I said one day, and this is a very true story, I was laying in bed. I had just closed the business, the second spa, and because once the partners went bankrupt, like, you know, that was it. It was over. So I'm laying in bed. It was probably my first weekend off in I don't know how many years, like, seriously. And I woke up hearing a lion roar. That's what, like, woke me up. And I was like, kind of just laying there, like, what the heck was that? And then I remember, like, thinking or hearing, you know, you've got to get your life together. Like, you've got to get your life together. And so my brain, you know, I have a very active brain. And I thought, well, what could I do to start healing? And for me, because I was always an athlete, I said, I need to get back in shape. I need to feel physically strong again in order to get my mind right. So that all the things that need to fall off will fall off. And of course, weight is figuratively speaking. But what I was carrying all those years was spiritual weight. because I was making decisions that I didn't really want to make. I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to let go of things. And all I did was carry burdens, and those burdens turned into pounds. So that's why I talk a lot about spiritual weight, and people will be like, what's spiritual weight? That makes no sense. And I'm like, it actually does if you really think about it, because we all have things in our spirit that affect us. And they can either make you happy and joyful, and you can bounce around all day with a smile on your face, or you can be a miserable person like I was and just want to stay in bed all day and not do anything, you know? And so for me, I felt like if I could get strong, and maybe I wouldn't look like I did at 23, you know, I could at least, get strong, get some energy, and then deal with the tasks at hand. And it was very interesting because the stronger I got and the happier I got, those people fell away. I didn't even have to remove them. Those people fall away from the wayside.
Jacqui, that is I love that image you talk about of spiritual weight, because that's so much the spiritual journey. You know, you can either start the journey with all kinds of weight on your backpack and you're lugging all kinds of people with you. But if you have the strength to continue and you're open to learning and you're open to new experiences, like you said, people will fall away. Your burdens will lessen, and you make room for other opportunities. I love that image that you use of spiritual weight.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important. What was the first step that when you heard that lion roar? Because you said something else that was really interesting. You said being accountable, and it takes a lot of work. When you got out of bed after hearing that lion roar, what was that first step to accountability? What was the first thing you held yourself accountable for? What was the first piece of work that you knew you had to do to get on the new path?
I texted my friend, and she took me to her gym, and I signed up, and I knew the guys that own the gym. I still go to that gym. It's like a fitness coaching facility. And it was so embarrassing because they used to come to my spa. They were bodybuilders, so they would come to my spa and get spray tans for competitions and things like that. And they'd always invite me, and I'd be like, no, I'm too busy, whatever. And by the time I got there, I probably hadn't seen them in a year. I mean, I was almost 50 pounds overweight. So those beginning couple months were really hard. And, I played, sports in college. So I was an athlete, and it was very hard because, your brain remembers when. So you think, like, I remember I was like, I can't even do 10 push-ups. And I used to bench 140 pounds. You know what I mean? Like, how did we get there? And you said that earlier. And the truth is, we all get there at some point in one facet of our life. And it's because life keeps happening. And if we don't stop and pause and assess our life, we are 5 years later and, like me, 50 pounds overweight or broke or all the above, you know what I mean? Because one thing bleeds into the other. And that's, I had 6 essential resets, and I used those categories, which were fitness and health, emotions, relationships, finance, appearance, and faith, because I feel that every single person on this planet can identify with one of those essential resets, and all of them, because they're all a part of our life in some way. But, when you don't deal with one, then you get to 2, 3, 4, 5, and I hope not 6 like I did. But that's what happens. It's a domino effect. It starts bleeding into the other area of your life.
Well, take us through those, because so much about what we talk about on this show is the idea of mindfulness, and not in a very narrow way, but in a very broad way, about really paying attention to all the things that are going on in your life. And you have these 6 dimensions. Can you talk to us a little bit about how those 6 dimensions can help a person create a plan to help them kind of pay more attention to the areas in their life where they need that reset?
Absolutely. They all are a part of our life, right? We all are concerned about our health, our relationships. But the one that I felt was really powerful, also, I mean, they were all powerful in a certain way, but to go along with what you just said, your emotional reset is very important because, you know, we have these conversations with ourselves daily and we don't realize what it's doing to our body. And one thing I can share with your audience that I think would just make perfect sense wherever you are in your journey, your spiritual journey, your mindfulness journey, is there was a study by Dr. Mizuru Emoto about water. And, you know, our bodies are over 50% water. And the study was really interesting. He did it with rice as well. But basically, he had the water in Petri dishes, different types of water, still water, distilled water, you know, lake water, river water, all these different kinds of water. But at the end of the day, what was said over the water crystallized in a certain way. So like if you said, I love you, I love you, I love you, beautiful crystals came to be. If you said, I hate you, or if you just completely ignored the Petri dish, ugly crystals. So imagine what goes on in our bodies that we cannot see by the way we speak to ourselves on a daily basis. And we talk to ourselves all day long. So when you're telling yourself, like, I'm no good, I'm never going to get married, I'm fat, I'm stupid, I'm broke, whatever, of course you feel that way and you believe it, and then your life reflects it because that is the conversation. So I would say the biggest thing, the first thing someone could do, other than, you know, A, you want to make your mind up that you need a reset. And it could just be like one area. But two is change your dialogue, change your conversation with yourself. Look in the mirror and say, I love you. I know it sounds like really weird and wacky, but we have to love ourselves. And one of the things I say a lot is the acronym BLOOM. And because I was terrible at this, I never learned to love myself. I was not raised like that. And I think anybody probably in their 30s and older can identify with this. I think millennials are a little more like with the program about like self-love and all that stuff. But people my age, like we're, you know, I have an Italian mother who took care of everyone. Like she wasn't worried about loving herself. She was worried about loving everybody else. You know what I mean? So, like, it's not a bad thing. It's just you kind of need to learn a different way to have a happy, abundant, joyful life. And so I use this acronym BLOOM, and it means believe love of ourself matters. Because love of ourself does matter, but we have to believe it too. And once you believe it, that you deserve it, your life shifts. And even the smallest shifts, little shifts create big shifts. So that's why I say accountable all the time, like be accountable. Like, so if you say you're going to go to the gym, who cares if you're there 10 minutes? Just do it. If you say you're not going to like eat, you know, carbs this week, give yourself a cheat day, but be accountable. Like just challenge yourself, you know, whatever that is. I'm not going to fight with my husband, you know, whatever that is.
You know, it's so true, Jacqui. And you know, I've said this in all the years that I've been studying spiritual paths and talking to people about this. It's very important to me to make the point of test the gods. Look, you and I are having this wonderful conversation, and don't take our word for it. If you're listening, put it to work. Try it in your own life. Test the gods. Put effort behind it. Test it. And then assess what changes are happening in your life. This is a very intimate journey that we're all on, and it doesn't require someone else's constant guidance. What it requires is us to take a few steps that we practice over and over again and test it. What was some of the self-talk that you changed towards yourself? What were some of the key messages that you had to edit and relearn and start to tell yourself?
Well, I did a lot of learning. So when I first started this journey, and this is something interesting too, which I think it's really important for your audience, is pay attention to the people who start to come in your life at certain times. I had a lot of angels that came into my life that really helped me, and that helped me with my self-talk because I started to learn the Bible. I was listening to all kinds of inspirational people. I love Dr. Wayne Dyer. I was just learning, like infusing myself into positivity and anything I could do to just change my mindset, because my mindset was
Right.
my poison. You know, I was so, and when we're depressed and when life is not working out, you know, we do get on the hamster wheel. So, and another person, I read the book Thoughts Are Things, you know, by Louise Hay. So I started to
Right.
implement some of her ideas, you know, which was that mindfulness, and also Dr. Wayne Dyer, you know, the I am. So I'd be like, I am happy. I am thin, even though I wasn't. I am in good shape. I am deserving of love. You know, just simple things. I am abundant. I am debt free. I think I must have said that a million times a day. You know, I'm skinny and I'm debt free. No, but no, that's what I would do. And like, you do start to believe it, but also I think your vibration changes, and then you start to attract different people in your life. And then, so that's what happened. I started attracting different people in my life, and they were encouraging me. They were teaching me. I was, like I said, learning the Bible, and I made all these new friends who are still my friends to this day. And it just, one of my friends that came into my life, who I knew from the spa, was a man. He's a minister. His name is John Lupo. He's one of my best friends. I would say he's my spiritual father. And I could go back the last like 6-7 years, every good thing that happened to me, almost, seriously, he had a hand in. It could have just been one introduction. It could have been, but that introduction led to 4 more introductions. So it's like, but I was willing to be open to change. I said yes, even though when I was scared to say yes. So I think the biggest thing too is like, you have to say yes to life. If it feels right, like, yeah, it could feel scary, but if it feels good and you know it's good for you, you have to say yes. Because once you start saying yes, those doors start getting kicked open. And then life starts happening in a different way, you know?
Yeah, I think that's the missing piece for a lot of people for the law of attraction is and we've said this before on the show, but, you know, it's not just about, you know, I wrote $1 million check and put it in my wallet. Well, if the opportunities come for you to do even small things towards that goal, you have to have the courage in that moment to say yes. I mean, people aren't going to hand you $1 million check, but somebody may come up to you with an offer to give a talk for free. So sure, the talk doesn't bring any income in, but it gives you an opportunity to get out there and to meet people. So you have to say yes to all the little things on that road to get you to that goal. And so I love that you bring us that reminder. Sometimes it's so hard to have the courage to say yes. And I think your story really inspires us to take that chance. And I want to ask you, how do you get that message out now? Do you have speaking engagements that you do around the country, or how do you get this message out to people?
Yes. So, you know, it's interesting, and I'm a very honest person. So I'm just an oversharer probably. So obviously, hello. So I do speak, and I do prison ministry, and I'm starting to speak more now. And you know, because of my reset, I had a lot of creativity come through me. And like, I just want to encourage our audience, like, we have so many gifts in us. Like, God gives us so many gifts, and we don't even know what they are sometimes until we remove those things that aren't serving us. Because like you said earlier, it's in the way. And if something's in the way, that good can't come through. So once I was reset, I started getting these ideas for a children's series. So now I write a children's series also called The Adventures of Stashi and Bello, where we teach love and kindness and sharing how wonderful it is to be unique in a multicultural world. And I have an anti-bullying tour that I'm doing called the Kindness Tour this year. So it starts end of November, and it's going all through 2019. So I'm also going to be doing the Kindness Tour with Reset, and I'm going to be speaking at high schools and also other places. I'll be speaking in Pittsburgh next weekend. I've started doing book signings. I just did a big Barnes & Noble one. It was unbelievable. I couldn't even believe it. But so that's how I'm sharing my message. And why I'm going to say I'm going to overshare now is because This book came out a year ago, but it was interesting because I knew I was supposed to write the book. I had no idea why on God's green earth this book was coming through me. Like, obviously, I lived it. I can articulate it and talk about it till the cows come home. Like, I understand about every single thing I wrote on all the principles, because that was my misery that I turned my pain to purpose. But I really wasn't ready to embrace what that responsibility was, because I really didn't know what the heck I was doing yet. You know what I mean?
Right.
So now I have my audiobook coming out for the holiday season for Reset. And I will be speaking a lot more now, because now I feel like I'm really standing in my space and I'm grounded, and I'm really ready to share this message and help as many people as possible. And I have a Reset group that's starting on Facebook. So we'll be like helping each other, encouraging each other. It's free. It's completely just a positive thing. And then for the year starting December, well, the first article came out in November, all through 2019, I'm going to be featured in World Magazine. And World Magazine is a magazine out of Pittsburgh, a beautiful magazine. Christine Thompson is the publisher. And my mother called her when I was doing my Barnes & Noble event, just randomly called her cell phone. We still have no idea how she got her cell phone number. And then Christine and I met, and she asked me if I would do excerpts for all of 2019. So that was another divine appointment. And so you just never know how things are going to play out. And, all the speaking I've done so far, I've not got paid for. The prison ministry, I've paid to fly myself there. Every single thing I've done, I've done. So I love that you brought that up before, because I think people are under the impression that you have to, if I don't get paid this, then I shouldn't do this, and da-da-da. But those things, all those things that are good that come into your life, and if you can say yes, you should say yes, because you don't know whose life you're going to touch. You just don't know. It could be just that one person that one word can change someone's entire life.
That's right. And Jacqui, there's a principle when I'm asked to speak. I've been doing some speaking around, and here's the principle. If I'm not getting paid, there also may be someone in the room who couldn't afford to pay. And so if we come together in a free talk where neither of us, if money is not exchanging, you reach people that you might not have otherwise been able to reach. So thank you for standing behind that.
Goodness. Absolutely. And I know that in the future, I'm probably going to get offered some things, to pay or whatever, but I don't do it because of that. This book has been a dance with the divine. I never planned on writing books, and now I have so many books. I can't even believe it. In 2 years, 2 years, it's all it's been. Sessi and Bello came out in December 2016. Reset came out in October of 2017. And then I have A Time to Shine. Like, I have a lot of other kids' books that came out. And now I have this audiobook coming out. And I co-authored a book this year called Women Across Borders. Like, my point of all this is that I never planned any of this. I'm 44 years old. So it's like, time is not of the essence, right? Because I'm not 25. Like, I'm a little older now. I'm totally in a reset because my career has been changing. Like, I am still doing makeup and entertainment and stuff like that. But I'm doing all these other things that if you'd have told me 3 years ago I was doing this, I would have told you were crazy. Like, no way, I'm not going to write books. I always was a writer, but never did I think I was going to be in this lane ever, ever, ever. So I want to encourage our audience, like, it's so important to clean up your life. It's so important to make space for goodness. And it's so important to just like fall in love with yourself and figure out what makes your heart sing and dance. Because every one of us has gifts that they can share with others that can help the world be a better place. And just, even if you change one person's life, it's worth it. Because then they're going to change someone's life. And it just goes on and on and on. And that's what we're really here to do,
I agree. And you may have just answered the final question, which is, what's a tip or tool that you can give our listeners for their own journeys of personal and spiritual growth? And you've answered it so many times over on the podcast. So what's that one last tip, Jacqui, as you're on your way out the door onto your kindness tour? What's the one last tip that you can give us that we can use now?
I'm gonna say one thing, but it's two-part. Is anyone that is wondering if they need a reset or not, I invite them to ask themselves this question, and it is, are you offering the world your best self? And if you're not, why not? So that would be like the first thing. And then my last thing that I'll leave with is, if God puts a dream in your heart, he will send the angels to help you. You know, and the angels are in all form. It could be the mailman, it could be your neighbor. You just never know who that person is going to be that's going to change the entire course of your life and help you. Because my favorite Bible verse is, with God, all things are possible. It's Matthew 19:26. So whoever you are, whatever you believe, I mean, anything is possible if you'll just have faith in yourself and believe, that it is.
I love it. I love it. That is so powerful. We've had so many guests bring that message of, will you accept? Will you accept? We have all these things that we really, really want, but you have to be there to open the door when the bell rings. So thank you.
Thank you so much. This was such a wonderful, wonderful moment and interview. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Jacqui. Your journey is very special. Your book is very helpful, and I just think this was very inspiring. Thank you so much. And that brings us to the end of this episode of the Nobody Guide to Life. Thank you, Jacqui, for being on the show. Thank you so much. And I want to remind our listeners, sometimes things get difficult out there. And that's often where we get the inspiration to change. If you feel that life is getting to be just a little too much, don't be afraid to call a timeout and hit the reset button. Sometimes starting over is where we need to start. You can find out more about Jacqui and her book Reset, 6 Essential Resets to a Healthier, Happier You at JacquiPhillips.tv. That's JacquiPhillips.tv, and links to her wonderful, everything's there, the children's books, the Reset book, it's wonderful. And the link will be in our show notes at thenobodyguidetolife.com. And you can always check out more episodes at thenobodyguidetolife.com. Reach out to us on Twitter and Facebook at Nobody's View, or now on Instagram at J.A. Plosker, or join the Facebook community Simple Spirituality. If you liked what you heard on this episode, please consider sharing it with someone you know. Keep practicing and have a good week.